Welcome to Going In Blind. I'm your host, Zach Tidwell, and this week I'm speaking with retired Air Force veteran, police officer, volunteer firefighter, soon-to-be author of his 8th thriller novel, and man with an incredibly unique name, Dave Jones. And to everyone at home, thank you for listening. Please take a second to help me grow the show so that I can keep delivering these conversations week after week for years to come. Subscribe, rate, and review the show in whatever podcasting app you're using right now, and check out the show notes to follow me on social media and YouTube as well. When you share your favorite episodes, tag me and use the hashtag GoingInBlind. You can also join my mailing list at zachtidwell.net. And if you know someone you think I should talk to, have them send me an email at contact.goinginblind@gmail.com. Mr. Dave Jones, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I review the notes that I've had people send me just to make sure that I've got everything kind of loaded into my mind and have refreshed the questions that I want to ask. And I've been nervous for the other ones. This one's especially weird because you've known my dad since I was a baby. So I don't know. Something about it makes it funky, but I don't know. I'm excited
I'm comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah. So for everyone at home, this is Dave Jones. He is a retired Office of Special Investigations airman turned police officer turned volunteer firefighter turned now thriller author working on his 8th book. And we're just kind of dive into everything today. Dave, do you want to introduce yourself in more detail than I can?
Sure. Like you said, my name's Dave Jones. I spent 20 years in the Air Force. I worked with Zach's dad, and we were both special agents with the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, or OSI. And probably many of you aren't familiar with that, but you've probably seen the TV show NCIS. There's like 5 of them. We were the Air Force equivalent to the NCIS. So I did that for 20 years, and I worked with Zach's dad. We were both stationed in probably 98, 99 in Montana at Malmstrom Air Base. After that, I became an anti-terrorism specialist. So most of my career was spent in the anti-terrorism world. So I did a whole lot of deployments overseas, 8 deployments overseas. My last assignment in the Air Force, I was a superintendent of the Special Investigations Academy at Attachment 1. That's where I trained all the deploying OSI and NCIS guys that were deploying downrange. We trained them for combat. We turned detectives into soldiers, give them 6 weeks of training to survive combat. I retired from that in 2011 and moved to Wisconsin, where my wife is from. I spent the next 10 years as a police officer. I just retired a couple years ago as the chief of police for the University of Wisconsin in Green Bay. Like you said, I'm a volunteer firefighter, and now I write fiction books. And that's kind of my new passion in retirement, is taking care of my grandkids and writing.
I don't know. I'm sure someone else has probably told you this, but somehow you've managed to not pick up the accent. Like we used to live in Michigan, and that Midwest accent, man, like it still catches my ear like real sharp. And you haven't picked it up at all. Yeah. Don't you know? But,
yeah. Well, I grew up in Arizona, so I spent 20 years on joining the service, and I had another 20 years of going around the world.
Yeah.
I've been here 10 years, but yeah, everybody here they say I sound like a Southerner, which I don't get that. But
it's weird when you get the people that have moved around everywhere. I mean, it ends up with this weird blend that you can't really pin down. But you were enlisted, right?
Yes.
For the entire 20 years that you were in?
I was, yeah. I retired.
Okay. As a what?
Senior Master Sergeant in EA.
Okay. Cool. Sorry, I didn't pick up on what you said, but and I mean, I was really intrigued. Obviously, I've heard my dad talk about what it was like working with OSI, and he went on to do federal law enforcement stuff. But I mean, internally, you guys investigate some pretty nasty shit sometimes between domestic abuse and child porn cases and stuff like that. I mean, is that, I guess my question is more so along the lines of, was that progression into anti-terrorism and eventually onto the other things that you were working on, was that a deliberate step away from that stuff, or was that just part of your career progression?
Sure, my career progression. It's we investigate any crime that may be of interest to the Air Force. So of course, our security forces, like our MPs, they do the base police things, but we had a matrix. We would take any felony crimes, of course, homicide or child molestations or anything like that. But we also do things like counterespionage, counterterrorism, a lot of things like that. So when I was
Oh,
working with your dad, that was really my first major assignment. So I was basically that was my probie, my 2 or 3 years as a probationary agent, where I was learning. You do the undercover narcotic stuff, you do all the felony crimes. Then after you do your first assignment, you can stay in felony crimes or you can specialize. And within OSI, we have certain specialties. Anti-terrorism is one. There's polygraph. There's counter-espionage, case officer, forensics expert, computer crimes. So I could have stayed in a felony crimes the whole time, but I decided they just created the anti-terrorism specialty team. We didn't have it when I joined the Air Force in 1991. And OSI, since Vietnam, they were really working on the Cold War. So most of the agents were trying to do dead drops and catch KGB agents and spies around the world.
fighting the commie bastards.
Exactly, but we
Yeah.
weren't really prepared for combat. We were doing like the cloak and dagger things. Well,
Yeah.
Black Hawk Down situation happened in '93. In Mogadishu, we
Yeah.
had 2 OSI agents assigned, but one was a computer crime guy, one was a fraud agent, and they were getting sniped at downrange with Rangers and Marines, and they weren't trained for that.
Oh, they were on the ground in Mogadishu.
Yeah, they had 2 guys on the ground, but they were functionally useless as counterintelligence officers because they're trying to collect, like dead drops, like spycraft stuff.
Yeah.
Sniped at, so they were functionally useless. So the Air Force decided to make OSI the Anti-Terrorism Specialty Team, or the AST. And they patterned it after Delta Force. They brought in the next Delta Force officer, and we created the Anti-Terrorism Team. And I tried out for it, and when I left Montana, where I was with your dad, then I got picked up to go to the Anti-Terrorism Team. And I served on that for a few years. Then I went back as a BAW. I made E7, and I was back to felony crimes for a couple of years. Then I volunteered to go back to lead the Anti-Terrorism Team in Europe. So that was kind of my specialty. And of course, when I was on the team, that's when 9/11 happened in 2001, and that's the Super Bowl. We had 30 anti-terrorism guys for the whole Air Force, and when that happened, it was
Wow. Just massive scale up.
yeah. The whole
Wow.
world changed. OSI changed. And since then, we had to retool, going from counter-espionage and catching guys in East Berlin to fighting Al Qaeda in the Middle East. So I took the first team of agents into Afghanistan right after 9/11. And then my last assignment, of course, I was training all the agents who will go overseas to Iraq, Afghanistan, the Horn of Africa, teaching agents. We all got our training in FLETC, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. But I was part of FLETC, but I gave an additional training of 6 weeks of Rear Fort Dick. So I just gave them combat operations. I had 20 cadre members, and we take them out and do combat deployment training before they went overseas.
Wow. That's interesting. I didn't realize you guys trained at FLETC. I've been there because after my dad left the Air Force and went federal, he'd still do training stuff there. Obviously, it's Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, but
Yeah. When me and your dad came in, you weren't going to FLETC. We were doing our training at Andrews, but it was around 99 or 2000. They switched to all OSI agents and NCIS agents go to FLETC for their initial and advanced training. Army, I think they're starting to go to FLETC, but the Army CID and Army military intelligence, they're always going to their own base, but I think they're starting to go to FLETC like everybody else now.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be curious. I think you connected me with Jeff Circle. Does that name sound a bell?
No.
Okay. He's a former Army CID guy, but he's another author, and I'll have to connect you two, because I think you guys, in terms of, he runs like something that he calls the Writer's Dossier, and he profiles different authors and voice actors and stuff like that. But I've seen he does a lot of work with other like veteran authors. So
yeah, that'd be great to
yes, I could do that afterwards. But I don't know why I was thinking you connected me with him, but I'll have to ask him about that, if they were training in FLETC or if he had any experience with that, because he did a lot of counterterrorism stuff as well. But yeah, it's an interesting path. And that had to be, you already said it. It was a world shift in terms of in your TTPs and everything were changing, and like a whole new field of OSI opened up.
Oh yeah. I was 30 years old when 9/11 happened. I was at E6, and I took six agents from the anti-terrorism team who were through Uzbekistan to Afghanistan. That was like our Pearl Harbor. And we didn't go to steady base like we had at the time in Kuwait and Saudi for, Desert Storm, Desert Shield. We were just dropped off in the middle of Karshi Kanabad, with nothing. We had a small special forces group, a few special operators and MI6 guys, and trying to, I'm 30 years old, trying to decide the playbook of what are we going to do and how are we going to do it.
Yeah.
But
Was that with JSOC?
It was. Well, we were separate from JSOC, but we weren't with JSOC.
You're attached to him. Okay. Yeah.
We were providing them counterintelligence. Our main job was, as we infiltrated the war, we were there well before the air war started. So
Yeah.
our job was, once they had infiltrated, we had to go in and find informants. So we'd find informants and try to get with the different fighters and try to help the warlords side up with, because we didn't want to have a ground war. The whole object was to get the Northern Alliance to fight the Taliban for us. Obviously, we try to pit them with the special forces guys, but obviously it didn't work, and we spent 20 years, blood, sweat, and tears there.
Yeah, it's impossible to fight like I mean, an insurgency like that those guerrilla tactics, I mean, it forces a ground war.
Yeah, and there's
Unless you're
no
gonna
alliances. I mean, every alliance. I mean, they're everybody is we tied to their family or their tribe, and you might buy their alliance 1 month, but then you find a different enemy, and the alliances shift and change, and nobody was patriotic or trustworthy. Nobody was an Afghan. Everybody's part of their individual tribe, and it was just kind of a nightmare. I mean, everybody's been fighting for that. I mean, Alexander the Great, the Brits, the Russians, we all fought there. It's just a terrible place to fight.
yeah, I mean, they've that entire culture for thousands of years has been fighting, and they're good at it, and it's interesting. We I don't know how much of that is propaganda. I don't know how much of it is human nature in terms of the way that we other them, and you assume that because they're in a third world country that they're not capable of standing toe to toe with a
I
conventional
mean,
force like that.
we yeah, in a straight up fight, we pretty much dominate pretty quickly with air power and night vision and everything else. But oh my gosh, we have we're there. I don't know if you were in Afghanistan or not, but we have guys with the Mosin, like a 6-year-old guy with the Mosin Nagant up at 400 meters from the hill shooting down at us. I mean, we're in range for his World War II rifle, but he's out of range for our M4s. So it's
Well, and
kind
it's tough because you can't just like, they'll indiscriminately kill whoever, right? Like yeah. And I'm not a combat vet. Both of my deployments were into the Pacific. I was in from 2014 to 2018.
of okay.
So I didn't go anywhere cool. I sat around on ship for half of my second deployment, and the first deployment was a unit deployment program. So we just trained in the jungle and in the snow on Mount Fuji for 6 months.
But
But
you're a Marine, so you got a cool uniform. That's all that really matters.
yeah, and I get to be like, yeah, I was a machine gunner.
Pretty
So
cool.
it was a cool job, but yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because I never really went anywhere, which is, that's kind of more of the case these days, but
Yeah, and that's how it was my first 10 years in the service. I mean, I deployed to Turkey for 15 months and Kuwait, but it was all steady state. We weren't really fighting an enemy. Saddam was contained. We were within Scud missile range of Baghdad, so we got combat pay, but it was
keep getting the
fun.
big paychecks from
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Wasn't until I was 30 when my second half, and I joined it during the first Gulf War because I thought that would be the last war of my generation.
Yeah.
And almost all my combat deployments were in the last 10 years of my service.
And I think you said you have grandkids now, right? So you had kids?
4 grandkids, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so you had a family already by the time that you're getting sent over there.
Oh yeah, I went, and it's hard because 9/11 happened. My wife and 2 daughters, and it's not, when that happened, we didn't go with you have your order of 190 days or 1 year. You just went. It was like World War II. You went until it was done. We were where we were going. I mean, we flew into Uzbekistan. We had our desert camouflage. We had cold weather gear. I mean, because we were used to deploying to Saudi and Kuwait, but Afghanistan's very different. It was like the base of the Himalayas. It was way cold. And we went in October. We weren't prepared for it, and they dropped us off on the ground. We had no supply depot for weeks. It was and OSI is kind of different because we don't normally wear uniforms. Because our rank is irrelevant. Because of I'm a sergeant and I investigate a colonel. I don't want my rank to be in the equation. So our ranks were all special agents. We all had
Yeah.
but we all wore civilian clothes, so nobody knew what they were.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, they all thought we were special agents. Most thought we were civilians, and a lot of OSI agents are civilians. The NCIS is almost all civilians.
Really?
Yeah, and Army, CID, and MI are almost all military. Use your warrants. OSI, we have a mixture of civilians, NCOs, and officers.
When it's civilians, I mean, are these guys with police backgrounds? Like how does that work?
NCIS, a lot of them are prior military guys.
Okay.
From they'll go FLETC. So I mean, you could get in right, just like same with OSI. You can get in right out of college. You'll start at the GS7, work your way up to the GS13 after a few years. But if you have prior military experience, it's a plus. The law enforcement experience, it's a plus. Most of our guys do. And for OSI, a lot of our civilian agents are retired agents. So might retire at 40 years old as a master sergeant or a lieutenant colonel and come back as a civilian for another 20 years is pretty common.
But I mean, so you go through all that, you retire, And then you said you were chief of police, so you went straight to the civilian sector instead of going back. Like, how? Yeah, is
Yeah,
that correct?
I told my wife, you followed me around the world because we went all over the place. You follow me for 20 years and I'll go wherever you want. So I hit my 20 and I was stationed in New Jersey, which was a horrible assignment. So I was out of Columbia. I was about to make chief, which is E9
Yeah.
major, but I had to commit and then to go back overseas. So, and I had to leave the family in New Jersey. This wasn't a great option. So I decided to retire at 20 years and not put on E9. Then we came back to Wisconsin where she was from. There were no federal jobs for me here. So I first became a city cop for about a year and a half. Then I became a college professor for a year teaching criminal justice. Then my daughter started going to college up at University of Wisconsin in Green Bay, and I wanted to keep my eyes on my daughter, so I went there and took the chief of police job. Oh, my youngest daughter for 4 years, keep her out of trouble
Yeah.
like that.
That's hilarious. Follow the baby through college.
Right.
Yeah. Did any of your kids go into law enforcement?
No, my daughter, of course, children always rebel, so my daughter went in the Army, of course, instead of the Air Force. And she was 4 years
Yeah.
medical equipment repair tech, and she married uh, a Cav Scout. So, like a lot of my books, you'll see some of those people. All my families kind of are characters in my books. So they live in Michigan. She works. They're both out now. He's construction, and she works as a civilian for the Army, working on vehicles or like logistics for vehicles. My
Okay.
youngest daughter is a school teacher here in town. She's married to a computer programmer, and he's also a volunteer firefighter with me.
Did you? So was that the hookup? Was that how they met? Was when you were volunteer firefighting?
No, they met at high school prom,
Oh,
but
okay.
as we were getting more involved, I wanted to make sure he knew who the big buck was in the family. I became a firefighter at 49 and 50 years old and brought him with me, so we had to go to the fire academy together, and just so he knew that I'm still dad, I'm still a
Yeah. That's hilarious, man. Huh. Yeah. So how old are you now?
I'm 53.
And had you been writing this whole time while you were in the Air Force and just not publishing anything? Like what's
No, I've never thought about it. I've written a lot of police reports, intelligence reports, but never. And
that's a
that's all
different
right.
ball game.
If I write a nonfiction, they'd have to go to the Air Force for approval, go through their whole lawyers, and it takes forever. So all my stories are fiction. There's real life. I mean, my history is baked into each of my fiction books, but
Yeah.
I only write fiction because I don't have to go through the Air Force lawyers.
And are these serialized? Is this one series that you've been working on consecutively or what's
I have 3 series going right now. So my main series is called Guardians of Rockport. Rockport's a fictional town in Wisconsin where I'm at. Basically, where the country falls apart, it's dystopian. So we go to war with China and Russia, hyperinflation and bad government. The country just falls apart. So the story is about a retired OSI agent who led the anti-terrorism team who just retired I made him a state trooper because, it's more relatable. So him and his family band together to protect the town of Rockport. And I'm working on book 6 in that series. Now that series is doing really well and it's fun. My other series is called Fox Valley Homicide. And I'm working, the second book should be out next month. It's each one of those is a different, I live in the Fox Valley. So there's between Appleton and Green Bay and Oshkosh. Each book will be a new murder in a new city in the Fox Valley, which is fun. And my series, I have one book out, is called Abduction of Scorpion 6. It takes place in 1955. It's a UFO book, sort of. I don't know if your dad ever told you about it or not, but Project Blue Book was America's investigation into UFOs. And OSI, we were the UFO investigators. Back from 1947 when the Air Force stood up till the program closed in 86. So we were the men in black. So when something happened, usually it was a U-2 spy plane that would crash or some sort of classified project. Everybody assumed it was a UFO. We'd show up, the obscure men in black from some 3-letter agency, which it was OSI. We'd show up and talk to them and make sure nobody saw anything. Because during the Cold War, most of the UFO sightings were U-2 spy planes or secret, weather balloons or spy balloons. So that's why we were read into the program, Project Blue Book. So we were the ones to determine if it was UFO or not, because we really were the ones that knew what the spy craft was out there.
No, that little shit's never told me that you guys investigated that stuff. I'm aware of Project Blue Book, but yeah, he's never mentioned that.
Yeah, it was before our time, but we were, OSI did Project Blue Book. We were the ones.
Oh, okay.
And so my series on Abduction of Scorpion 6 is based off a real OSI case that happened here in Wisconsin in 53, where there was a plane flying over the Sioux Locks over Lake Michigan, and it looked like a UFO. So the Air Force dispatched a Scorpion. That was our fighter at the time, was a P-89 or F-89 Scorpion, went to investigate it. And on radar, it looked like they collided, but the UFO kept going and the plane disappeared. So everybody assumed at the time it was a height of sci-fi UFO hysteria. It was abducted, but we did the investigation. We think the pilot got vertigo and just crashed into Lake Superior. We never found the plane or the two pilots. And the UFO, we decided was a Canadian C-47 off course, but nobody believed it. But that was the official investigation. So my story takes place 2 years later with the same squadron. Another Scorpion disappears. So now the new OSI agent as they go up to investigate as part of Blue Book. So I get to talk about Project Blue Book, and of course that's when the UFO or the U-2 spy plane came out and Operation Dragon Lady. Most of those sightings were the U-2 spy plane.
How much do you follow what's going on right now? And, you know, the Tic Tac videos with Commander David Fravor and the stuff that Ryan Graves talks about, do you have like a morbid interest in that stuff from,
I'm familiar with it now. On my time, I've never seen anything that would, cause. Now I'm not a non-believer, but I've never seen anything to believe in extraterrestrials. Almost everything we've seen is explainable, and just because it's not explainable doesn't mean there's no explanation. It just means we haven't seen it yet. Now I can't rule out, other terrestrial life space out there, life forms, but I don't have any knowledge of it. I know we've done a lot of stuff in the military way before my time that people just thought were UFOs were hard to explain, but way to explain the stealth fighter, the U-2 spy plane needed so many. That's why they're all black, they only fly at night. Why the U-2 caused so many things in the 50s was because we thought planes could only fly up to 40,000 feet. And that was the max. That was the highest anybody could go. And you had to have oxygen and all that. Well, the U-2 flew almost at 70,000 feet. And the radar only went to 60,000 feet. So it was flying above radar. And while we saw it, it's up 13 and a half miles high. But now we had credible sightings from dozens of pilots, military pilots, that were more credible than some bubba in the field, that's hunting and drunk. So now we have credible sightings.
Yeah.
What it was a U-2 used to be plane in silver. It was flying so high in the night, but they were so high in altitude that it would see the sun over the horizon. So the fighters flying at 40,000 feet, you'll look up, they see a big glint of light above them, look like a white light.
Yeah.
It was the sun at the horizon glinting off the silver wingtips of the U-2. That's why we started painting them all black. And all the stealth bombers are painted black now.
Well, and that same kind of, that sweep of alleged sightings and stuff, all that happened with the B-2 even, just because, it's a giant, it's basically a giant wing, and it looks so
it doesn't look like
foreign.
at night. I mean, it doesn't look like a plane. There's no lights on it because it's most of the sightings, even back in the day, was, I know when in-flight refueling became new, we never saw it before, but when it started flying toward California at Travis Air Force Base, there would be like a in-flight refueling plane coming forward and a plane behind it, taking fuel. But now you see a pattern of lights coming. And with lights, you might see them, 20, 50 miles away. It's hard to judge the distance and speed, but it looked odd. These pattern of lights that weren't similar, but now you think about it, it's two planes flying together, refueling. That caused a lot of, nighttime in-flight or UFO sightings. So there's a lot of unique things. Science explains a lot of it, not all of it, but about 95% of it back in the day. The new crop of sightings, I don't know. I'm as interested in anybody else. I mean, I like to think the government knows where it is and isn't telling us.
Yeah, I do too. It's fun to think like, okay, what if it is something? And especially, they talk about some of this stuff being like transmedium, where, according to sensors or, trying to piece together even data from different systems, it appears like these things go from air into water and things like that. But I don't know. I wish I could see what these things look like and watch some of these videos, just because it sounds fun, and it's fun to put the tinfoil hat on.
It's not very conclusive. I mean, there's something to it, of course, but what is it? Is it China? Is it us? Is it Is it I know like Elon Musk came out yesterday saying that we need to scrap the F-35 and start going with drones because we're way behind the power curve on that, and I probably agree with that. But I mean, maybe it's the industrial military complex trying to show our vulnerability, so we go and buy their products. Who knows?
Yeah, dude, there's so much fuckery at play with everything. Just, I mean, it's hard to know.
Because we do the security for Area 51, and it's a huge aspect. I mean, so many things happen there. I mean, you think about the stealth. We were doing that in the 80s. I mean, we flew the stealth fighter the first time in '89. We invaded Panama. It was super classified then. But that's all the stuff we're developing, 20 years earlier that comes out. Imagine what we've been developing the last 20 years that maybe we're seeing now. I like to think it's something we developed, and I don't know why the government's not sharing. Maybe because it's classified. I don't know. Could it be space aliens? Maybe. I really don't know. But
It'd be cooler if it was, but yeah, probably not. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I think it's all interesting stuff, and it's weird. it's weird trying to look into it when I can't watch the videos and stuff. It makes it a little less dramatic when I can't see the crazy shit that everyone else is seeing. But um, I I have a hard time understanding even as so eight books in and of itself, and especially you said that's been in the past 2 years, really, right?
Yeah, 2.5 years. Yeah.
First of all, that pace is insane, and I didn't realize you were writing it across 3 different series too.
Yeah.
How
I have
I
ADHD, so it's hard to focus.
I mean, do you treat it like a full-time job now?
No, no, I probably do it a couple hours a day. There might days go by where I don't do it, but I'll knock out a book in maybe like 6 weeks, but then I have to go back and clean it up, edit it a little bit, and tweak it here and there. They're doing really well. I've sold. I'm almost to the 5,000 mark. I've sold 5,000 books. So I mean,
Wow.
I'm not getting rich or anything. They're all self published. So I make anywhere from $600 to $1,500 a month in book sales, which
That's a
I'm very
lot.
happy with. And
Yeah.
I'm happy with. I mean, it's not I'm not loaded, but on top of my military, my police pensions, it keeps the wife in shoes. So
Yeah. That's wild, dude. And so, I started writing my book back in January, but it's nonfiction and it's a memoir. I started writing it, I think, on January 18th, and then I finished it on Thanksgiving. And I've got other stuff going on. So it's the thing that I enjoy the least out of what I do. So it's what I make myself get up and do first thing every morning so that it's out of the way. But I mean, it came in at a little over 70,000 words, but I mean, it took just about every day, writing
uh,
just about every day for that entire period. So it's hard for me to wrap my head around that. I mean, that is insane.
it's probably harder to write a memoir for yourself because there's so much emotion in it. And my stories are fiction, so I mean, there's some emotion in mine, but I can make it up as I go. Where you have to keep yours, on point, which
Yeah.
is difficult.
It's funny because I've pondered that and thought, I'm like, it's got to be way harder to do fiction because you're having to come up with everything. But I guess it's when you know what you know, the other side of the coin kind of seems
Yeah.
a little different. But
Well, it's fun. I mean, most of the stories. I mean, all the characters are based off, my family and friends. The names are all changed, and the stories are fiction. But I get to, all my main characters retired OSI agent. Who's a cop like me. His wife is Penny. My wife is Patty. Is his
oh,
son-in-law.
that's real
Father's
close.
firefighter. His daughter's a teacher. So all the characters are really my family, and it makes it fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess when you're going through with Patty, I mean, do you just kind of follow like alternate timelines where you're like, yeah, those jeans did make your ass look big, Patty.
Yeah. No,
No.
I'm pretty complimentary to her in the book. My editor, so good.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Messed me up
That's
with some spelling errors. My first book, I made a spelling error. Well, there's always spelling errors. Editing's tough. But I talked about like a rogue warrior, but I spelled it rouge. I put the U on the wrong side of the G.
yeah.
Well, got published that way as like rouge. So no one caught it for till some grammar guy gets it like, hey, what's a rouge warrior? I'm like, son of us, I had to change.
Yeah. And then it's on Reddit and it blows up and then that's
Yeah,
all you
yeah.
hear
Well,
about.
but most of my buddies are military or cops. So in book 3 in the series, my cover art, the guys where it has an AK-47, but it's backwards because they had to reverse the image for some other copyright image reasons.
Yeah.
The left-handed AK. I don't think anybody pick up on it. Yeah.
So the ejections,
Oh, yeah, hey, nice left-handed AK. I'm like, well,
that's hilarious.
yeah,
That's funny.
yeah. But people
Huh.
fun things.
Do you do all the cover design and stuff yourself too?
No, I have a company that does. I tell them what I want on it, and they'll come back and it's completely wrong. Then I send it back with more edits, so it goes back and forth. And I design them all, but I have a company that does it. Usually, some guy in Pakistan or whatever. I go through a company and they outsource it, but it always comes back dorked up at first. But by the end, it's pretty good. People like my cover art. It's pretty good. So
That's cool. Have you done, I Googled this and I didn't find any. Have you done any audiobooks yet?
no, I want to, but they're expensive. So
Have you thought about doing them yourself? Like doing your
yeah,
own voice for it?
I have. I guess I haven't really researched. I don't really know how to do that. So that'd be another thing I have to take on. But I get a lot of requests for it. A lot of my guys, a lot of military guys aren't readers, but they like to listen to books while you drive. So
Yeah, because we're all dumbasses and we can barely
exactly. Yeah,
read.
there's
So.
Marines. Yeah, like my books.
Yeah, it's a bunch of us. But and I realized as I asked like if you would do it on your own, obviously like that was kind of a dumb question. It's a lot different for you to read a fiction like an actual thriller with different characters than it would be
I
for
mean,
like
but
me to read a memoir. Yeah.
it's hard because I have so many different characters. I mean, do I do them all in my voice, or do I like pretend I'm a woman for part of it? And like
Those are rough, dude. When you get
yeah.
men trying to do female
Oh,
voices, I don't know.
oh,
That's a hard line.
yeah.
But
So I got a story about your dad. I think
yeah, I would love that.
you may not remember this at all, but I do. Oh, it was I think you were like 2 or 3 years old, but 1999 came and we thought the world was going to end because computers were going to shut down.
This is Y2K. Yeah.
So it was huge. And like the command told all of us agents, you could be drinking for like the week up to Y2K or the week after. We had to do all kinds of stuff because we were, the world we thought it was going to fall apart. Not, but I mean, in Montana, we had the militia guys who were doing all kinds of crazy stuff. They thought the government was going to take over. We had,
Yeah.
tons of stuff going on. Well, in Montana, there's 200 missile sites. That's where a lot of our ICBMs are. So OSI put out to all the agents of missile bases, they want us to go out and contact all the farmers, people near all these missile sites, and see if they saw anything suspicious. Well, in Montana at the time, it was full of like, Timothy McVeigh types, anti-government types. And so they want us to go out there, me and Tom, in suits and ties, because we had to be agent attired, drive out in like Farm Bell with our badges and, walk up. And so it was already a stupid mission the colonel made us do. So me and Tom are out there doing it. And there's one little town in Montana that everybody thought was haunted. It's like a little town of like maybe 50 people. And everybody around them said it's like a witchcraft town or whatever. It's probably just BS. But like when
Like
the
the
Air Force
hills have
cops,
eyes kind of
yeah,
shit.
it's exactly like that. Well, the cops had the Air Force cops would go through there with their missile convoys, and they see like swing with nobody on it, and they see like no one ever in the street, so they always trying to lock it on the Humvees. So
Yeah.
the was known in this little town. So me and Tom, your dad, had to go out there to this town that everybody talked about, and try to knock on doors and see if anything suspicious. And so it's already freaky out. So me and Tom, we drive out there. We're like a Plymouth Acclaim, and we decide to wear this like in jeans and stuff, so they know we're not shoot worthy. We went to this one little. It's a spooky place. I've never been spooked out by paranormal stuff in my life, but we're driving now. The sun's setting. The sun's like shining in our eyes. We're going. There's an old like farmer fence on the side of it. They were passing and go to some farm by the missile silo. On top of every farm post or a fence post is like an old witch boot for like miles. Like, this is weird. And we get to the end of the road. There's like a dead cow bolted to the fence, and it's like been there for like 2 weeks. It's all like shriveled up in the sun.
Yeah.
And we're like, that's weird. So we pull into this desolate farmhouse. And back then, we didn't have cell phones. I think we had like the big, huge flip phones. We know where to call anybody, and there's no deputies out. We're like 2-3 hours from base. So we get there. We walk up. There's like 4 like serial killer vans in the parking lot of this like a farm. No, all the windows are covered on the van.
Free candy on the
And
side.
there's no license plates, and there's all these like Blair Witch program stuff like hanging from like these trees. So like it's freaky out. So me and your dad walk there. We knock on the door. No one answers. Then we hear like a chainsaw in the basement.
Of course.
I'm like, your dad says, "You just want to say they weren't home?" I'm like, "Yep." We just got in the truck and left. Got the car. It's the only time I got spooked, but that's my Tom Tidwell story. It was
Yeah. Real critical thinker, my dad.
yeah.
But,
You want to say they went home? I do. So let's go back.
yeah, that seems like the right move.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man. That's cool. Well, what else? What else is going on right now? You got the book, next book coming out. Do you have an actual release date for it yet?
I don't. It's in editing right now. Probably I'm trying to get it out by February 15th.
Okay.
The first book's called, in that series, is called No Perfect Crime. The second one's going to be called No Perfect Wife. The concept is a girl, and all my books are veteran related. So my book here, it's veteran. She's got issues. She was an Air Force veteran. She only served like a year, and she got out on mental health. But she's telling everybody at the VA and all at the American Legion that she was a combat vet, and so she's a combat medic. Blah blah blah. Complete stolen valor.
I've
But she's
met those
also had-
people.
Yeah, she's also got issues where like she's fake having cancer. So she's got all these issues in the past, but now she goes missing jogging on a trail outside of town here. So we don't know if she was abducted because she's a shady person that makes up stories for grandeur, or if she was, hiding and just, abducted herself for the attention she's seeking. So the first half of the book is you're trying to decide what happened. So then she gets found, later. So you're still trying to decide if she faked it or if she got abducted, but then she really does get murdered. So then we have to decide who murders her. So
Jesus.
got a
Okay.
lot of the Berkeley stuff in there. The American Legion's a big part of it. The vet center at the college. So it's fun. I tie a lot of the veteran stuff in there. So
How long are these? Do you have is there a standard length that your books kind of tend to come in around word count wise?
I try to get about 83,000 words is my goal.
Holy shit.
So it's not a big book. It's like 300 pages, but it's They say nonfiction you want between 70 and 90,000 words. So I try to get
Yeah.
about 83,000 words. They're all right in there.
And you can crank that out in like 6 weeks, the first
Yeah,
draft.
yeah.
Wow.
And they're fun. You know, I go back and, you know, I put a lot of twists and turns in it. So I sell mostly, well, the first is just the cops and military and firemen, that kind of stuff. But now it's taken off, especially locally. I mean, I sell for about 150, 200 books a month. Just through
Wow.
Amazon, not counting when I do like individual book sales. I sell quite a bit, but it's picking up. But like writing books, it's not a sprint; it's a marathon. It takes time to build a reader base. So I
Yeah,
like
it's
putting books out, and I like to be able to just, you know, about the time I'm 60, another 7 years, I could have a couple grand a month coming in as supplemental income. It's kind of my goal.
it's a good feeling. Yeah. That's interesting. No, that's you know, I was a machine gunner in the Marines, and then since I lost my sight, I taught myself how to code so that I could create software that lets people with disabilities access the same stuff that everyone else has access to. But I've seen in that on the software development side, you know, as a small business, it's similar in that you kind of have to have a catalog of things before you start building real momentum. It's interesting that there's those parallels, but
You got to build a base. So
yeah, when you don't have a bunch of marketing money to throw at stuff. And
yeah, I don't even market. I'll market on Facebook. Not even Facebook ads. I'll just go and put it on certain sites. But I haven't
yeah,
paid a dime in marketing yet. I plan to, but uh, haven't yet.
that's wild, man. That's awesome though. I mean, a couple $100 a month is no joke.
Yeah, it's word of mouth. You know, I advertise like other OSI agents, military guys, NCIS. A lot of the military criminal investigators like it because each book has an OSI or ex OSI agent in it. So I do a lot of we a lot of these books like Clancy, these are guys that are good writers. They never lived a life, so they'll kind of, you know, tell what they think. Where I lived a life. I'm not a great writer, but I'm a good storyteller.
That's at least
They have the
accurate.
bona fides to back it up, and yeah.
Yeah. That makes a big difference, man. I mean, it really, really does. I mean, were you a big reader of all that stuff before you started writing, or did
I
that was
wasn't. I did. Yeah, I read a lot. I mean, I wasn't a huge reader because I was always so busy. I mostly read nonfiction. I'm a big history buff, so I put a lot.
okay?
My books have a ton of history in it. Uh, so my last book. I mean, there's a lot of history here in Wisconsin. So like, you know, the Sputnik, the space, you know, the first satellite, the Russian satellite, it crashed here in Wisconsin. So like, you know, that's in the book, different aspects.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the Republican Party was the started machine. You know, with Abe Lincoln's all up right here. So there's so much Wisconsin history that people don't know. Even people from Wisconsin, so I could sew it into the book, and it's kind of cool. Like my 1955 book, Senator McCarthy, who was the one that led the whole Russian scare, the Red Scare, the 50s. He's
Yeah.
from my little town here, so I mean that's where he's from. So I could put a lot
Ah,
of real history into the books because history is kind of my other passion. So my books are there's history baked into it, counterintelligence, cop stuff, emotion, PTSD, veteran issues, and just a fun cop story. So it kind of I had PTSD from the wars, obviously, and this started off as a way to cope with some of my PTSD because as a guy, it's hard to tell my daughter's wife how I feel and my buddies. I lost some friends. So by writing these stories, I can kind of put to the main character. I can share my feelings through the character versus things I don't feel comfortable saying out loud as a man. And so,
that's really interesting.
yeah, it started off as therapy for me, and it kind of turned into a thing. It's still therapy, but I make a little money at the side now too.
Which helps. That adds a little
Well,
weight to
nice.
the therapy. Yeah. Do you feel like it's helped you actually work
It,
through some of that stuff?
it has. Because being moving every 2 or 3 years, I lost kayak. Like in the Marines or military army, you're in a unit. You have all your friends. You're with them the whole time. In OSI, you change so much. You don't deploy with your unit. You deploy on your own to 3 or 4 guys from other bases. So all my
Always as
units, I
an
never had a
attachment.
unit, and so I lost contact with everybody. So now writing these books, now I've rekindled my contacts with like your dad. I haven't talked to your dad since 1999 until I wrote these books.
That's crazy.
And all my old partners, guys I risked my life with here or there, you know, that unlike the other military, it's, you know, in the army, these guys have these big, you know, get-togethers, you know, 20, 30, 50 years later. And like, I don't know what unit I would do that with because all my deployments were onesies and two of us go here, two of us go there, might be five of us, but we're all
Yeah,
in units. So
yeah, you're always an asset as opposed to being an entire unit.
we were a global asset and we were just kind of sent in from everywhere else, which is, it, it was good for a time, but it's hard to reminisce with things. So now with Facebook finally and these books, I've been able to, you know, touch bases with, you know, guys I lost contact with over the years.
That's really cool. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, because I mean, I grew up with the internet, even though it was like the early days. Obviously, as a kid, I mean, social media is what I've known. I didn't think about it in that aspect. That's interesting. That's really cool, man.
Yeah, I got my first home computer when I met your dad, and I didn't know what to mean. The internet was all dial up. There's nothing to look at anyway. But it was, 1999, 2000, and it was just there's no real internet yet. It's just starting. So I mean, and I had to do Facebook because being a counterterrorism officer, counterterrorism officer, I didn't want to have a face print, so I didn't really start Facebook until I retired from the service. And most of my buddies don't have it. Like it's like like your dad, most guys aren't going to have a Facebook account in their name. There'll be like some pseudonym, so no one knows. Because a lot of guys, if a lot of what the CIA would do would really be OSI or NCIS guys that are doing it. And we kind of go between our agency and CIA for different missions. So the CIA wouldn't touch you if you had a digital footprint. So everybody made sure we were all cleansed and sterilized from social media. So if we want to switch over to the agency for an op or a mission or a tour, they would take us. If you had a bunch of stuff chugging beers on Facebook, it's not going to get you. So
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a risk, just from an operational security standpoint. Like,
oh yeah.
if
And
you
as a
have
camp,
that out there,
yeah. Oh, and as a chief of police for for an NCAA Division I university, I mean, it was my whole department. The first thing we did when the kids did something stupid is we checked Facebook. Someone,
really,
yeah, it's
yeah,
if someone's doing something. Okay, pull up Facebook, get a picture of their dorm rooms, a bunch of big pile of dope behind them, or some girl had passed out drunk that was sexually assaulted. There's always something. Steer your shoes.
yeah.
We put everything on Facebook right away, which makes it easy to solve crimes.
That's funny. I've heard that, second and third hand, but never
Oh
directly
yeah,
from the source before.
yeah. I always go right to it. It's it's just crazy. It's
Yeah.
Let's no. Being a camp, I didn't think being a campus cop would be for me, but it's really more than I thought. Being like a military base, a large university is like a little city. I mean, we had movie theater and banks and venues, sporting complexes. 10,000 people, and I thought I'd just be chasing the kids, but there's so much more. We had 3 homicides while I was there, so I mean, and sexual assaults. I mean, a lot of stuff going on. So it was a lot more to it. And of course, our main function was training for active shooters. So I made sure I had a lot of had a part of more ex-Marines. We're all ducked out. Everybody had a suppressed M4. We had all our tactical gear. I mean, we never had an active shooter situation, but my guys were pretty much ready to go for it. Most of my department was ex-military, mostly Marines.
That's interesting. I mean, we had, like, for my second deployment, yeah, we were running suppressed M4s with an RCO on it and a, PEC 16 laser light combo. And that's the campus police forces running the
Yeah, I
same
mean, we kept
stuff.
them in the car. We don't walk around campus with it, but
Yeah.
because on one side of the coin, you got to be nice and be educational to the kids and cut them a break. But if there's an active shooter, we got to be able to respond immediately. And because Green Bay PD, that was our backup was the city, but the campus was so big and confused, and they'd never find us. And if you're in one of the buildings, I mean, it might take our backup 20 minutes to find where you're at.
Yeah.
So it was, our guys were all ready to go. I mean, it was a good department. I enjoyed it. I didn't think I liked being a campus chief, but it was a lot more rewarding than I thought. Except for the politics sucked. That's why I retired so young. Was after the George Floyd thing in the 2020, the Black Lives Matter and COVID, the politics was a nightmare. So yeah, once I hit 50, I was able to retire and get an early pension from the state.
Yeah, I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and there's a lot of cops in my gym, and they talk about, how different it's been since the whole defund the police movement and all that stuff. And I mean, it's a shame to hear, like, that's a tough job, and it's so underappreciated.
Well, that's why, I mean, I had 18 full-time cops, and I was getting complaints every day, and they're all unfounded. I mean, I had 33 complaints after the George Floyd thing, and they were all completely made up and unfounded. Thank God for body cameras, because I was able to refute every single one. But I had to fight for my guys every day. Was challenging. We had a pretty good, where it wasn't like the big cities, but in Green Bay, but we back at the city, but we had 6 police cars smashed. They burnt some buildings and threw bottles at us. It was, it wasn't like Minneapolis or anything, but it's pretty bad.
Yeah, that doesn't make it any less bad. I mean, it's in less volume, yeah, but that's wild.
Yeah.
Well,
So now I'm retired. I'm still part-time at the university. I'm still an on-call detective. So if there's more of a bone they threw me because I was a chief. And so if there's like an internal use of force complaint or something, I can come in and bring me in to investigate. Because I have, chief experience, but I'm not in the chain of command right now because I'm retired. Like I'm in and, we get a lot of Trump comes up here and, Hillary, all the candidates come up here. So we do a lot of emergency operations center. We always have them on campus. because it's
No.
them. So every time I bring like when Trump came up, I needed like 80 cops. I had to get cops from like 8 or 9 different cities, and I ran the operation
Jesus.
for that. So we get a lot of heavy hitters like that on campus, and they come up to try to during election season anyway.
Yeah. So you're busy. You got a lot going on top of the writing stuff.
Yeah, and the grandkids keep me busy. They're crazy. So, but I'm having fun. I'm 53. I'm still young. I'm doing the volunteer fire thing. Oh, that's getting old. That's hard. It's hard.
It's starting to get rough on the body.
All those hoses are heavy. You fill them full of water. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tell-
but I'm having fun. Yeah, I retired early, so I'm 53. I'm not an old guy yet, but yeah, life's pretty good. I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. If you get on testosterone replacement, you'll be brand new, man.
Yeah, I'm on that. I got on that,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I'm feeling my age. Yeah, I'm pretty beat up from the service, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, you got anything else you want to shout out to?
I don't. Tell your dad hi. Tell your mom hi. I haven't seen them in a long time.
Me neither. I haven't seen him in about 6 years. So,
Obviously, Jay.
but yeah, I will.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me on. If you need anything in the future, I'm always here. Give me a shout.
All right. Where can people go to find your books and keep up with you?
Books at, you can go to my website at davideldonjones.com, DAVIDELDONJONES.com. So on my website, or you can just go to Amazon.com. All my books are at Amazon.com. My series are Guardians of Rockport, Fox Valley Homicide, and Abduction of Scorpion 6.
Okay. And I'll throw at least the link to your website in the show notes so people can go there. Yeah, I appreciate you coming on and letting me pick your brain for a little bit, man. This was really cool.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody, for checking out episode 4 of Going In Blind.